I used to think money was the one thing we never fought about. Not because we had so much of it, but because we were careful. Because we were a team. Or at least that's what I believed back then. We were the kind of couple who tracked every expense on a shared spreadsheet, who joked about generic cereal and off-brand detergent like it was a personality trait. We'd sit at the kitchen island on Sunday nights, laptops open, glasses of cheap red wine sweating onto the granite, planning out our future like it was something you could just organize neatly if you tried hard enough. His name is Mark. I still catch myself wanting to soften that, like maybe saying it quietly will make it hurt less. We'd been together for 11 years, married for 7. We lived in a modest 3-bedroom house in a quiet suburb outside Columbus, Ohio. Tree-lined streets, kids riding bikes until the streetlights came on. The kind of neighborhood where people waved even if they didn't know your name. It felt safe, predictable, ours. I worked in HR for a mid-sized logistics company downtown. Mark was in commercial real estate. His income fluctuated with commissions, so my paycheck was the steady one. We both knew that. We talked about it openly. When he had a good quarter, we celebrated. When he didn't, we tightened things up and reminded each other it was temporary. That's why the savings mattered so much to me. It was our buffer, our emergency parachute, the thing that let me sleep at night. We started that savings account the year after we got married. Joint account, no secrets. We called it the Future Fund, half joking, half serious. Down payment for a bigger house someday, maybe a lake place, kids if we decided to go that route, or at least the option to decide. By the time all of this started, there was just over $86,000 sitting in there. I know that number because I checked it obsessively. The first weird moment was small, almost nothing. A random Tuesday afternoon when I logged into our banking app to move money from checking into savings like I always did after payday. The balance looked lower than I expected. Not dramatically, a few thousand. I assumed I was misremembering. I scrolled back through transactions, half distracted, thinking about an email I still hadn't answered at work. There was a withdrawal I didn't recognize. Then another. Then another. They weren't labeled in any obvious way, just transfers out. Clean, quiet. The kind of thing that doesn't scream problem unless you're really looking. My stomach tightened, but I told myself it was probably a closing expense or something work-related. Mark sometimes fronted money for deals and reimbursed himself later. He'd done that before. It wasn't unusual. That night, I asked him about it casually. We were standing in the kitchen, him leaning against the counter, scrolling on his phone, me rinsing dishes. "Hey, did you move some money out of savings?" I said, like I was asking if he'd taken the trash out. He didn't look up right away. That pause. It was barely a second, but it landed heavy. "Yeah," he said, "just temporary. I'll put it back." "For what?" I asked. "Work stuff," he said quickly. "Nothing to worry about." I waited for more. It didn't come. Normally, that would have been enough. We trusted each other, or I trusted him. I nodded, turned back to the sink, told myself to let it go. But something about the way he'd answered felt off, too smooth, too practiced, like he'd already rehearsed it. Over the next few weeks, I noticed other things. He started staying late at the office more often, not unheard of, but the pattern changed. He used to call or text if he was going to be late. Now he didn't. He'd just show up after 9, tie loosened, eyes tired but alert in a way that didn't match his explanation. He started guarding his phone, turning the screen away, taking calls in the garage. I hated myself for noticing, for cataloging these details like evidence. I didn't want to be that wife, the paranoid one, the one who jumps to conclusions because of a vibe. I'd seen enough friends implode their marriages over nothing to know how dangerous suspicion could be. So I kept quiet, mostly. But the withdrawals kept happening. Every time I checked the account, there was less. 10,000 gone, then 15, then 25. Always in chunks large enough to matter, but small enough to maybe explain away. I stopped transferring money into savings altogether. It felt pointless, like pouring water into a bucket with a hole in the bottom. One night, after he fell asleep, I lay there staring at the ceiling, listening to his breathing, and did the math. If this kept up, our entire savings would be gone within a few months. The thought made my chest feel tight, not just because of the money, but because I didn't know who this man next to me was anymore. I confronted him again. This time, I wasn't casual. We were sitting on the couch, some Netflix show playing that neither of us was watching. I had my phone in my hand, the banking app open, the numbers right there like a challenge. "Mark," I said, "we need to talk about the savings account." He sighed, like I was inconveniencing him. "What about it?" "Almost half of it is gone," I said. "That's not temporary." He rubbed his face, leaned back, stared at the ceiling. "I told you, it's work. I'm in between commissions right now. I just needed to float some stuff." "You've never needed this much before," I said, "and you never talked to me about it." "I didn't think I had to," he snapped. "It's our money." That word, our, it hit wrong. "It is our money," I said. "That's why I'm asking." He softened then, or at least tried to, reached for my hand. I didn't pull away, but I didn't squeeze back either. "I promise you," he said, looking me in the eye, "there's nothing else going on. I'm not hiding anything. I'll replace every dollar
Taylor, you just need to trust me. I wanted to believe him so badly it hurt. Trust was our thing. We'd always said that. We were honest, different from other couples. I told myself this was just stress talking, that I was projecting my own anxiety onto him, so I dropped it. Again. A month later, I checked the account and felt like I was going to throw up. There was just over $20,000 left. I sat in my car in the grocery store parking lot, engine off, staring at the screen until it blurred. People walked past with carts full of food, normal lives. No idea my world was cracking open in that moment. I called Mark. He didn't answer. I texted him. No response. When I got home, he wasn't there. His car was gone. It was a Friday night. He'd said he was meeting a client for drinks. I poured myself a glass of wine I didn't even taste and waited. By the time he walked in, close to midnight, I was shaking. Not crying, not yet. Just vibrating with something sharp and electric. "Where is it?" I asked, the second he closed the door. He froze. "Where's what?" "The money," I said. "Our savings. Where did it go?" He dropped his keys on the counter a little too hard. "I told you." "No," I cut in. "You told me it was temporary. This isn't temporary. This is almost everything we had." His face changed then. Something defensive hardened in his eyes. "You're overreacting," he said. I said I'd handle it. "Handle what?" I asked. "Because I'm done being lied to." He laughed, actually laughed, short and humorless. "I'm not lying to you." "Then explain it," I said.
Right now. There was a long silence, the kind that feels like it's pressing in on you from all sides. Finally, he said, "It's complicated." That's when I knew. Not exactly what was happening, but that the truth was something he didn't want to say out loud, something big enough to drain our savings, something he'd already decided I couldn't handle. I went to bed alone that night, not because he didn't follow me, but because I couldn't stand to lie next to him. I stared at my phone, at the bank app, at the dwindling number that used to represent our future, and wondered how someone I loved could look me in the eye and deny something that was clearly bleeding us dry. I didn't know yet that the money was the least painful part of what he was hiding. I didn't sleep that night, not really. I lay there, listening to the house settle, the hum of the refrigerator downstairs, the faint buzz of my phone every time an email came through. Mark slept in the guest room. That was his idea. He said he needed space, like I was the one who'd done something wrong. By morning, the numbness had worn off, and something colder replaced it. Clarity, maybe, or survival instinct. I took the day off work and waited until his car pulled out of the driveway before I started digging. I hated myself for it, for turning into someone who snooped, who clicked through files and opened drawers like I was looking for contraband. But I also hated the version of me that had trusted blindly while our life savings evaporated. That version felt naive now, almost embarrassing. The first thing I checked was our shared laptop. Mark was careless with technology in a way that always used to annoy me. Passwords saved automatically, browsers left logged in. I opened his email. Nothing obvious. Mostly work, calendars, a few hotel confirmations that caught my eye, but they were listed as business travel, charges at odd hours, hotel bars, boutique hotels, not the big business chains he usually booked through work. There was one hotel charge in particular that made my hands go cold. It was a place downtown, walking distance from his office. I'd driven past it 100 times. Brick exterior, exposed bulbs, valet parking. The kind of place couples go when they don't want to be seen. I cross-checked dates. Late nights he'd come home smelling like someone else's perfume, which I'd dismissed as cologne samples or other people at work. Nights he'd claimed a deal ran late. Nights I'd eaten dinner alone, telling myself this was just what adult marriages looked like sometimes. I sat on the floor of the office, back against the wall, laptop balanced on my knees, and felt something inside me shift. Not break. Harden. By the time Mark came home that evening, I wasn't crying. I wasn't yelling. I was calm in a way that surprised even me. Calm like someone who had already lost something and accepted it. "We need to talk," I said. He didn't look surprised. That should have been my first clue that he knew this was coming. I showed him the statements, one by one. I didn't accuse him. I didn't raise my voice. I just slid the laptop across the table and waited. He stared at the screen for a long time. Too long. "That's not what you think," he finally said. I almost laughed. It was such a cliché that it felt insulting. "Then tell me what it is," I said. "Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're spending our savings on hotels, dinners, and drinks you never told me about." He exhaled slowly, like he was preparing for impact. "I didn't want you to find out like this." That sentence landed harder than any confession could have.
Not denial, not anger, just regret over timing. So there is something, I said. He nodded. Barely. I remember noticing stupid details in that moment. The way the light from the kitchen window hit his face. The faint line between his eyebrows that only showed up when he was stressed. I'd memorized this man over a decade, and suddenly he felt like a stranger wearing Mark's skin. It's not serious, he said quickly. It was never supposed to be. I stood up so fast the chair scraped loudly against the floor. Don't, I said. Don't minimize it. He flinched. That was new. How long? I asked. He hesitated. Then, a few months. My stomach dropped. A few months translated to 100 lies. 1,000 moments I'd trusted him without question. And the money? I asked. All of it? He nodded again. This time there was no hesitation. For what? I asked. Her? He closed his eyes. That was my answer. I walked out of the room and into our bedroom, hands shaking so badly I had to sit on the edge of the bed. I pressed my palms into my thighs, trying to ground myself in something physical, something real. When I came back, he was still standing there, like he hadn't moved an inch. Say it, I said. Say you drained our savings to fund an affair. He looked up at me, eyes red, jaw tight. I didn't mean for it to happen like this. I laughed then, a sharp, broken sound that didn't feel like it came from me. That's not what I asked. Yes, he said quietly. I used the money. The room felt too small, like the walls were inching closer. Why? I asked. Why not just leave? Why not tell me? Because I didn't want to lose you, he said. And for a split second, he sounded sincere. I stared at him. You already did. He told me her name after I asked. Claire. She was younger. Of course she was. Late 20s. Worked in marketing for a tech startup downtown. They met through a mutual client. Drinks after work turned into more. A story as old as time, apparently. She didn't know I was married at first, he said, like that mattered. And then when she found out, it was already complicated. I pictured her then. Not in detail. Just a blur of youth and novelty. Someone who didn't know the sound of his snoring, or the way he left socks everywhere, or how he shut down when things got hard. Someone who only saw the polished version of him, the charming one. And you paid for everything, I said. He nodded. She's still paying off student loans. I didn't want her to worry about money. I felt something snap. Not loudly. Quietly. Cleanly. You didn't want her to worry, I repeated. So you let me believe our future was intact, while you emptied it out behind my back. He reached for me then. I stepped away. Don't touch me, I said. You don't get to comfort yourself right now. He sank into a chair, head in his hands. I was going to put it back. When? I asked. After what? After she got bored. After we had nothing left. He didn't answer. I went back to the office and opened the savings account again. The numbers stared back at me. Small and fragile now. I thought about everything that money represented. The safety net. The trust. The years of discipline and shared goals. All gone. I slept in the guest room that night. Or tried to. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw receipts. Hotel lobbies. His phone lighting up with her name while he sat across from me on the couch. The next morning, I asked him to leave. He begged, cried, promised therapy, promised transparency, promised it was over, that he'd blocked her.
That he'd do anything. I believed none of it. Not yet. What I didn't know then was that the affair hadn't ended. Not really. And that the money he'd already taken was just the beginning of how deeply he'd betrayed me. Mark moved into a short-term rental across town, a furnished one-bedroom with gray walls and fake art, the kind of place designed to feel like nowhere. He packed a suitcase and a few hanging shirts like he was going on a business trip, not exiting a marriage he'd set on fire. I watched from the doorway as he loaded his car, my arms folded tight around myself, like if I let go I might either scream or collapse. He kept glancing back at me, waiting for something. Forgiveness, maybe, or permission. I gave him neither. The house felt different after he left. Not quieter exactly, but hollowed out, like the sound echoed longer than it should. I moved through the rooms, touching things, grounding myself. The couch where we planned vacations.
The kitchen where we danced drunk at midnight to some dumb playlist. Our bedroom where I changed the sheets immediately, scrubbing his scent out of the fabric like it was a stain. I told a few people, my sister first, then my best friend, Jenna. I didn't tell my parents, not yet. Saying it out loud made it real in a way I wasn't ready for. Everyone reacted the same way, a mix of shock and fury on my behalf. They asked questions I didn't have answers to. How could he do that? Did you see it coming? Are you going to divorce him? I didn't know. I still don't know how I functioned in those first weeks. I went to work, I answered emails, I smiled at coworkers, I cried in my car. I replayed conversations over and over, trying to pinpoint the exact moment things went wrong, like there was a single misstep that could explain everything. Mark texted constantly, apologies, updates, proofs, screenshots of blocked numbers, photos of himself alone in his empty apartment, like loneliness was currency he could use to buy back my trust. I responded sparingly. When I did, it was factual, logistics, bills, nothing emotional. I couldn't afford to let myself feel around him yet. Then, about 3 weeks after he moved out, I got an email notification from our bank. Not unusual. I almost ignored it. Almost. I opened it anyway. There was a new withdrawal from the savings account. At first, I thought it had to be a mistake, maybe some delayed transaction, maybe a fee. I logged in, heart pounding, fingers clumsy on the screen. Another $4,500. Gone. I sat down hard on the edge of the bed, the air knocked out of me like I'd been punched. We'd agreed he wouldn't touch the account again. He'd sworn, said it was off limits, that he understood how serious this was. I called him immediately. He didn't answer. I called again, straight to voicemail. I texted, "Where did the money go?" Minutes passed, then 20, then an hour. I felt something dark start to pool in my chest, not sadness this time, anger, the kind that burns clean and hot. When he finally called back, his voice sounded wrong, tight, rushed. "What?" he said, like I was interrupting him. "You took more money," I said. I didn't yell. I didn't have to. You promised you wouldn't. There was a pause. I could hear traffic in the background. He wasn't at home. "I can explain," he said. "No," I said. "You're done explaining. Where is it?" He exhaled sharply. "I needed it." "For what?" I asked, even though my body already knew the answer. "She's in trouble," he said. "Claire, she needed help." I closed my eyes. The room spun slightly. "What kind of trouble?" I asked. "She lost her job," he said quickly. "Her rent's overdue. I couldn't just let her get evicted." The audacity of it was almost impressive. "So you let me get robbed instead," I said. "It's not like that," he snapped. "You're not on the street." "No," I said. "I'm just married to someone who's still choosing his mistress over his wife." "She's not my mistress," he said. "This isn't that simple." I laughed. I couldn't help it. "You're right. It's worse." I hung up on him. My hands were shaking so badly I dropped my phone on the bed. I stared at it like it might explode. That night, I didn't cry. I opened a new checking account in my name only. I transferred what little remained of the savings into it. I changed passwords. I locked things down. It felt like slamming doors inside myself. The next morning, I called a lawyer. Her office was in a converted old house downtown, the kind with creaky floors and plants everywhere. She was calm, direct. She listened without interrupting as I told her everything. The affair, the money, the continued withdrawals. She didn't gasp or judge or look shocked. She just nodded and took notes. "That's marital waste," she said finally, "and it matters." The phrase lodged itself in my brain. Marital waste. Such a clean, clinical way to describe what felt like emotional arson. She explained my options. Separation agreements, asset tracing, temporary restraining orders on accounts. I felt strangely relieved listening to her talk, like for the first time in months, someone was speaking in facts instead of feelings. When I told Mark I'd spoken to a lawyer, he showed up at the house unannounced. I opened the door and immediately regretted it. He looked thinner, tired. His eyes were bloodshot, his hair unwashed. For a moment, I felt a flicker of something like sympathy. It died quickly. "You're really doing this?" he asked, stepping inside like he still belonged there. "I told you not to come here without asking," I said. "I panicked," he said. "I didn't think you'd go straight to a lawyer." "You didn't think," I said. "That's kind of the theme." He followed me into the living room. "I messed up," he said. "I know that, but we can still fix this." "We?" I asked. He flinched. "I cut things off with her," he said, "for real this time." I crossed my arms. "You said that before." "I mean it," he insisted. "She was using me. She only cared about the money." I stared at him, stunned. "Do you hear yourself?" "I'm serious," he said. "She's not who I thought she was." "And what am I?" I asked quietly. "Who am I to you?" He opened his mouth, closed it, looked away. That was answer enough.
I'm filing, I said. You need to accept that.
তোর কারণে শেষ করিলামি হকাল আর পরকাল, তোর কারণে শেষ করিলামি হকাল আর পরকাল। কে জানিত হবে এমন পুরিবে কপাল আমার, কে জানিত হবে এমন পুরিবে কপাল। দুঃখের পরে আসে রে সুখ, আমার বেলায় নাই। আবেগে তাকাইলেই যেন প্লাবন হইয়া যায়। দুঃখের পরে আসে রে সুখ, আমার বেলায় নাই। আবেগে তাকাইলেই যেন প্লাবন হইয়া যায়। যতনে তুলিয়া গাছে টাইনা টাইনা তুলে সাল, কে জানিত হবে এমন পুরিবে কপাল আমার, কে জানিত হবে এমন পুরিবে কপাল। কাদা মাটি মিশ্র কইরা বানাইলাম এক পাখি, কারণ সারাই নোটিশ দিয়া করিল চালাকি। কাদা মাটি মিশ্র কইরা বানাইলাম এক পাখি, কারণ সারাই নোটিশ দিয়া করিল চালাকি। কই মল্লিকে মরলেই বাঁচি, আমার নিশির নাই সকাল, কে জানিত হবে এমন পুরিবে কপাল আমার, কে জানিত হবে এমন পুরিবে কপাল। তোর কারণে শেষ করিলামি হকাল আর পরকাল, তোর কারণে শেষ করিলামি হকাল আর পরকাল। কে জানিত হবে এমন পুরিবে কপাল আমার, কে জানিত হবে এমন পুরিবে কপাল।
What she's going through. I laughed quietly. You're right, I don't. Because when I was going through hell, you were busy funding someone else's life. He didn't deny it. Instead, he said something that finally snapped the last thread holding anything together. She needs me right now. That was it. Not I love you, not I'm sorry, not please don't do this. She needs me. I hung up without another word. The restraining order went through the next morning. Temporary, but effective. All accounts frozen, no transfers without dual authorization. Mark was notified officially by the court before I ever spoke to him again. He showed up at the house that evening anyway. This time, I didn't open the door. He knocked, then pounded, then knocked again, softer. Please, he said through the door. Just let me explain. I stood on the other side, my hand resting flat against the wood, my heart beating steady and slow. There's nothing left to explain, I said. I ruined everything, he said. His voice cracked. I know I did, but I can't lose you too. You already chose, I said, over and over. She manipulated me, he said suddenly. Claire, she knew exactly what she was doing. I closed my eyes. Even if that's true, you let her. You chose to. She's threatening to expose me, he blurted. To tell you things, to tell everyone. I opened the door then, not wide, just enough to look at him. Tell me what, I said. He looked terrified. That I promised her things, he said. That I told her we were basically over. That I said the money was mine. I nodded slowly. It wasn't. I know that now, he said. She's demanding more. She says I owe her. The irony almost made me smile. You owe me, I said, and you can't pay that back. I closed the door again, locked it, set the alarm, and for the first time since all of this began, I slept through the night. The divorce process was brutal but clean. Financial forensics traced the money. Every hotel, every dinner, every gift, jewelry I'd never seen, rent payments, utilities in her name. It was all there, laid out in black and white, like a ledger of betrayal. Claire tried to contact me once, a long message request on social media that I never opened. I didn't need her version of the story. I already knew enough. Mark tried too, less frequently, shorter messages, less confident. Reality had caught up with him, and without access to money or control, he didn't know who he was anymore. The judge ruled in my favor on the financial waste. I didn't get everything back. Some things are gone forever, but I got enough. Enough to start over, enough to feel steady again. On the day the divorce was finalized, I sat in my car outside the courthouse and cried. Not because I wanted him back, not because I missed him, but because I finally let myself grieve the life I thought I had, the future I'd planned, the version of love I'd believed in. Then I drove home, my home, alone but not empty. I repainted the walls, rearranged the furniture, took down the photos that no longer made sense. I opened a new savings account and named it something different. Not Future Fund, just my name. Sometimes I still think about the moment he told me she needed him, how clear everything became right then, how betrayal isn't always loud or dramatic. Sometimes it's quiet, calculated, disguised as care for someone else. He didn't just drain our savings, he drained my faith in him. And in doing that, he gave me something I didn't know I needed, the certainty that walking away was the only thing that would ever save me.
সেই বন্ধু যে দিল না রে আমার প্রেমের দাম কইলজা কাইটা লেখি আমি আমার বন্ধুর নাম সেই বন্ধু যে দিল না রে আমার প্রেমের দাম কইলজার মাঝে রইল স্মৃতি বন্ধু আমার নাই বন্ধুর লাগি এখন আমার কইলজা পুরে চাই কইলজা কাইটা দিলাম আমি আমার প্রেমের দাম বন্ধু আমার দিল না রে কইলজা কাটার নাম কইলজা কাইটা দিলাম আমি আমার প্রেমের দাম বন্ধু আমার দিল না রে কইলজা কাটার নাম দিলাম কইলজা কাটিয়া প্রেমের ব্যথায় গেল হায় রে কইলজা ফাটিয়া মনের ভিতর জায়গা দিলাম কইলজা কাটিয়া প্রেমের ব্যথায় গেল হায় রে কইলজা ফাটিয়া কইলজার আঘাত মনে জমা বলতে পারি না বন্ধু আমায় গেল ভুলে কইরা চলো না কইলজা কাইটা দিলাম আমি আমার প্রেমের দাম বন্ধু আমায় দিল না রে কইলজা কাটার দাম কইলজা কাইটা দিলাম আমি আমার প্রেমের দাম বন্ধু আমার দিল না রে কইলজা কাটার দাম কলজার মাঝে নাম লেখিয়া করলো বেইমানি কলজা কাটার ভালোবাসায় জন্য চোখের পানি কলজার মাঝে নাম লেখিয়া করলো বেইমানি কলজা কাটার ভালোবাসায় জন্য চোখের পানি প্রাণের বন্ধু দিল আঘাত আমার কলিজা কলজা কাটার ভালোবাসার কান্না হলো ভাই কলজা কাটা দিলাম আমি আমার প্রেমের দাম বন্ধু আমার দিল না রে কলজা কাটার দাম